3 from Maguire. Your defence is terrified.
And this actually even looks like a vortex. It looks like, well, where are they?
Some things never change. He's still a terrible, terrible loser.
I don't know what Virgil van Dijk's really doing. Absolutely woke.
Manchester United staged the smash and grab of all smash and grabs as Harry Maguire's header handed them their first win at bitter rivals Liverpool since January 2016 under Louis van Gaal. Cue absolute pandemonium in the away end when Maguire nodded past the goalkeeper, and a chink of light perhaps at the end of the tunnel for Ruben Amorim after all. I'm Will Pugh. That right there is Dean Scoggins, Sun Sports tactical guru. This studio is the Tactics Exposed studio. And Dino, as always, mate, excellent game if you're a United fan at Anfield on Sunday. And you have got 5 tactical teasers from that game that fans may or may not have noticed.
Yeah, excellent game if you're a neutral as well. I thought it was absolutely superb watch.
Right.
But number one, the midfield vortex. Now, this was really interesting of how the midfield just emptied out, OK? Number two, I think this is how United fans are feeling this morning. It's Bry on life. They're very high on life today because of Brian and Mbeumo's fast start. Number 3, Matt Cunha, as maybe the chant will go now from the United end, but not necessarily an attack from Cunha, but something we noticed in defence. And number 4, you're going to sing this for us, aren't you? 3 from Maguire. And number 5, Mo Salah. We've got to touch on Liverpool's attacking issues somewhere in this, although let's be honest, they could have scored 3 or 4.
As always, Dino, trying to get me to do lots of singing on Tactics Exposed. I'm quite sure how I feel about that, but I'm sure I can give you 1 or 2. Look, Dino, the midfield vortex. When you text that last night on the Tactics Exposed group, I was very, very excited indeed. We spoke about it on Team Talk in the build-up to this game about the issues. One of the questions we had was, how can Manchester United win the midfield battle? Because United fans were thinking it was an area of concern, and win the midfield battle, Dino, is certainly what they did.
Absolutely, yeah. We should be really complimentary for Amorim here. He's come into a lot of stick, a lot of it quite rightly, a lot of it talking about rigid formation and 3-4-3 or 5-3-2, however you want to see that formation as. But this was outstanding, and not only outstanding as a plan, but absolutely brilliantly executed by Casemiro, by Bruno, by Mbeumo, by Cunha, by Mason Mount, and how they went about that. And I would include Amad Diallo in that group as well, who on Team Talk I would say, please play Amad Diallo, and we'll come back to the goal in a minute. But so what they did, it was a combination of knowing how Liverpool attack and how Liverpool wanted to attack, and knowing how to exploit that both in a defensive position and an attacking position. And basically what that meant is, do you remember the Eric Ten Hag donut midfield that everyone talks about? Where it's like, where's the midfield gone? That's what was happening to Liverpool. So we're going to show a few grabs here where basically you've got the Manchester United midfield 2 or 3 because Cunha was dropping back in, or Mbeumo was going narrow, or Mason Mount was providing the extra man, and no Liverpool midfielders. And quite remarkable. So because Manchester United set up in the mid-block in a defensive position, as we talked about on Team Talk as well, that means that Szoboszlai and McAllister are going to run in behind. That left Gravenberch all on his own. And because Van Dijk and Konate don't want to go into those areas, it was still just Gravenberch on his own. And so then when United got the ball, really cleverly as well, Bruno, Mount, Brian and Mbeumo would run from midfield positions out into wide positions. Liverpool players are obviously going to track those players. And so, again, Liverpool's midfield, when they win the ball back, was not there. So it was just remarkable. And it was really clever, both when they were set up defensively and when they got the ball. And there's a really great heat map, which normally you'd expect to see a Liverpool midfield heat map with just burning up the middle of the field. And this actually even looks like a vortex. It looks like, well, where are they? There's a couple of swooshy lines, and where is that Liverpool midfield gone? And I felt quite sorry for Gravenberch, really, that McAllister didn't have a great day again. Szoboszlai was doing his best to try and support Isak and run into those channels. But because United was so organised with that back 3/back 5, and then Casemiro dropped at the lower point of midfield and Bruno had the support of Cunha in front of him, they just blocked it off. It was just excellent.
It's quite clever, really, Dino. They sort of Amorim's made it so Liverpool fans were kind of chasing shadows and always out of the middle of the pitch where they could be most effective and have been, because as we've said, everyone spoke about Szoboszlai and Gravenberch being the sort of the key elements to this new look Arne Slot Liverpool, and Amorim just sort of totally like diffused that, really.
Yeah, and it was better when Szoboszlai went to right back again late in the second half, because then he could move into the midfield position as an inverted fullback rather than start there and run out of it, which is what he was doing a lot. And we should also give a lot of credit for the way United pressed, because I mean, I as I said in the preview show, I thought that it should have been Šeško who occupied the two centre forwards, but instead they didn't occupy either of them. You know, it was double down. You know, so don't just have one extra man, have two extra men by just leaving Konate and Van Dijk where they are. But when they pressed United, they pressed curved runs, as we always talk about, and they blocked off all the passing lanes, which meant Liverpool were working really hard to try and receive the ball. But again, that meant they just opened up midfield. And then if you want centre-backs like De Ligt, Maguire and Shaw to jump out of the back three, that's a lot easier to do when there's not four Liverpool midfielders in there as well. So they could do that really well. It was excellent from United in that sense. Look, Liverpool created chances, we need to say that, but it was an excellent plan and brilliantly executed.
Bry on life, Dino, is point number 2. Bryan Mbeumo signed from Brentford in the summer. Sort of an ongoing saga as it was. Manchester United fans delighted when he finally landed, and stamping his name into the annals of Manchester United history by opening the scoring at Anfield after just 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was a brilliant start, wasn't it? And again, in the Team Talk show, I said, please give us an early goal so that it would open things up, and hopefully Man United score early and we get a great game.
Even the football gods watch tactics.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we wanted, wasn't it? So well done, Bryan Mbeumo. And yeah, look, there's a few things to break down in this goal. So first of all, I don't know what Virgil van Dijk's really doing going out as far as that, and not only clattering Mbeumo in the first instance, but clattering his own man in McAllister.
That's the header in the middle of the pitch.
At the header in the middle of the pitch. He takes out his own man there. Oh, look, McAllister, you could say McAllister was in the way. I should secondly mention that, you know, the referee really should stop play there for a head injury. He really should. And the claim that he didn't see it is laughable, because as you'll see from our grab, he's looking straight at McAllister. But then there's a couple of things to pull out. So Bryan Mbeumo makes a fantastic run. It's almost like he bounces off the ground and gets back up again and sprints in behind. It's almost like punch-drunk boxer who's hit the canvas and bounces back up again and goes. But with him, not only does I'll come back to Van Dijk in a second, that was terrible from Van Dijk, but Gravenberch is actually ahead of Mbeumo when the ball goes wide to Amad Diallo. So Gravenberch is at fault here as well. Closer to his own goal. Yeah. And he gets overtaken by Bryan Mbeumo. And then Van Dijk does this ridiculous turn and point as if that's somebody else's man, not mine. No, Virgil, he was yours when you went for the header. He's yours in the sense of the attack. He's yours when the ball gets played into the box. It's Virgil van Dijk's mistake. But again, Amad Diallo's position really key. As I said, I wanted him to play wing-back for this exact reason, because he's in that halfway position where you can play the ball in front of him so he can run at a full-back, which is what he does. And a full-back against someone like Amad Diallo is never going to go, I'll try and commit, because you're going to get beaten up the outside. Then Mbeumo makes the great run up the inside. Fantastic pass. And then one other thing I would identify is I don't know where Mamardashvili's going. You know, like, a goalkeeper who's outside the line of his posts, no good can come of that ever. If he stays in line with his front post, I'm not sure how Mbeumo would score. It would have to be some finish, probably near post, top corner. But as soon as he comes out, he makes a decision for the striker, so he scores the goal then. So that's easy, right? So the goal was all of those things added together. But the main tactical thing about Bryan Mbeumo in the match was that starting position again. We've talked about it in previous episodes where he hangs out onto the right in a position where the left-back doesn't know whether to go or doesn't know whether to stay. He gives the left-back a really big problem.
He's occupying no one
exactly,
on purpose.
Yes. Yeah. In this game, he was occupying 2 players on purpose, because what he does is he sits himself on Van Dijk's shoulder, so Van Dijk can't go further across to Konate, because then the space between the left-back and the centre-back opens up. And also, Kerkez, knowing that Van Dijk doesn't like to mark 1v1, as we talked about in Team Talk, Kerkez goes in. So decent position from Kirkes because he's thinking, well, I'll race Mbeumo if the ball goes in behind, and then I've still got the player outside me. But the incident where Bruno Fernandes hit the post, where United should have gone 2-0 up when they were completely dominating, was Cunha dropping into a position. And then, because of Mbeumo's starting position, Kirkes is narrow and the ball gets switched over to Amad Diallo to race up that touchline again. And Bryan Mbeumo was picking up that half space in an attacking sense and a defensive sense, and he was stopping Kirkes going both ways. He was stopping Van Dijk coming out, and he was then allowing Cunha to drop in and be the extra man. So 3 things that he hit. And, you know that I like to pick out players in teams who are like the manager's tactical man on the field. He's fast becoming this for Man United because he's doing these little subtle different jobs in games against different teams that are hurting them in both directions. So bring on next week. Let's see another one from Bryan Mbeumo.
Well, he was doing so much of that, wasn't he, for Thomas Frank at Brentford as well. That's why Frank loved him so much.
Frank played him up front as well. Played him in different games as a false 9, played him wide right, played him sometimes where he started on the right and used to pick the ball up in a more number 8 position and then play from there. So, yeah, really, really flexible player.
Matt Cunha.
There you go.
Matt Cunha.
That's great. I'm sure. Do they do that in the Stretford end yet? If they don't, they should.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, he didn't have a great day going forward, okay? But, the tactical plan for Matheus Cunha was that instead of picking Šeško, as I mentioned, we're not going to occupy Konate and Van Dijk. We're just going to sit off those 2 and we're going to stop Liverpool playing through midfield. And, I mean, he had very, very bad cramp at the end. That sort of real weird laugh you make when you know how much that hurts when you see a player go down, almost like the old ball in the nuts that people can't stop laughing at. But it's one of those
that will
where...
never not be funny.
Yeah, but that's a similar sort of thing, right? It's Schadenfreude, isn't it? But it's Cunha...
Who does he play for?
Very good. So when he was working so hard, and what he was doing was basically stopping Gravenberch. So Gravenberch, obviously, class act, OK? And teams will do this against Manchester City with Rodri, and teams will do it a lot now with Liverpool with Gravenberch because you've got to stop that holding midfield player dictating play and dictating possession. And Matheus Cunha did the job of both the things where he was making Konate and Van Dijk think twice and he was forming a midfield 3. And what was interesting is that United dropped Casemiro as a lower point, as I mentioned, and then Bruno Fernandes and Matheus Cunha were the 2 ahead of it. So you've got that triangle, and he was just doing a brilliant job around Gravenberch. And it also meant that he was picking the ball up in broken play. So when the ball goes long and either Mount or Mbeumo were competing for a header, Matheus Cunha's round the second ball with Bruno Fernandes as well. So they were really buzzing around that second ball. And look, we've got a really, really good grab, which we're going to show as well, which is the perfect setup from Man United, which basically shows everything that we want to show of how they did it. And Matheus Cunha in this position here has dropped back in, and Bruno Fernandes is there as well, to stop Ryan Gravenberch, OK? So...
To block the passing lane. To block
the passing lane and stop Ryan Gravenberch spinning on the ball. So we highlight Bryan Mbeumo there as well, who's in that half space. This grab here is probably exactly what was right for Man United and wrong for Liverpool about the whole game. Quite. So, first of all, who's missing? Konate, out of shot. Where is he? Like,
that's a very good
there's
question,
not even
actually.
a striker who is pushing him in any direction. Cunha's dropped in. So Konate needs to be right up on the halfway line there. Conor Bradley needs to be right wide on the right. Kirkes is lazy or bottling it here over on the left-hand side. He needs to be down on the left.
As in wider?
As in wider. Because if he comes wider, Bryan Mbeumo has to come out wide, which provides a pass into McAllister or Szoboszlai. And then if they do that, either Casemiro or Bruno Fernandes have to come across to block that lane, which opens up a pass to Gravenberch or Isak. So Isak's come in short because he's trying to make an unselfish run for Salah or Szoboszlai to run in behind. But Luke Shaw's thinking, happy days there. I can see Isak going the wrong way. I can still double up on Salah with Dalot the other side. Perfect from United, empty midfield from Liverpool, and Liverpool have got 4 players here who are not in the game whatsoever. So not only is it 10v10, it's 10v6.
Yeah.
So it's just a perfect example, and that's because Matheus Cunha was doing that job with Bruno Fernandes and dropping in that role, which also allows, as I mentioned, De Ligt to track his runner and Shaw to jump out. So 5-4-1 from United. Perfect.
So do you find that interesting or surprising at all, Dino? Because it's not unreasonable to suggest with some of the stories that we are party to on Sun Sport coming out of Wolves suggest that at times he could be somewhat of a challenging character in and around the place and in training, and that, he's not short of confidence in his ability, let's put it that way. Come to Manchester United, and there it felt, certainly to me, out of him and Mbeumo, we've just spoke about Mbeumo there and how diligent he is doing his work on and off the ball. You kind of had more faith that he would do that. Cunha felt and feels a little bit more of the sort of flair player of the two. He's going to give you something a little bit magical, a little bit special, and that perhaps he would lack in those parts of the game. Are you seeing what you would expect to see?
Well, I think that was a fair question.
Him?
I think that's an absolutely fair question. It would be a fair question for a lot of Man United fans to think when he came in. Will he do that side of the game? Because let's be honest, United aren't in the top three, and therefore he wasn't just coming in to be that flair player. In order to take Man United from, the bottom half of the table to where they want to be next season, Cunha's got to be part of both sides of that game. And look, just taking this game as that example, he has bought into that clearly. And they were, without Šeško as the target man, they were a much more mobile and tactically cute front three. And we should mention Mason Mount as well, because look, yes, he's the Amorim favourite. Yes, a lot of fans are sort of questioning whether he should play or not. But to me, he does a great tactical job, and him and Cunha worked as a pair. And we'll show the average positions of that. And Cunha and Mbeumo is in that half space, but Cunha and Mount are basically the ones that are helping out that Bruno and Casemiro in midfield to make it that they've got the extra man. So really clever.
3 from Maguire. Your defence is terrified.
There you go.
Yeah?
Happy days.
Right,
yeah. Three from Maguire. So 2 things. 3 at the back. Led the back 3 superbly. And 3 points from his header. And I just want, 2 things to highlight from Maguire. First thing is that when you play a back 3, the centre back of those is where everybody takes their positions from. Okay? So if you're in the wrong place, everybody's in the wrong place. Harry Maguire, for this entire game, in that mid-block as we looked, was the leader of that pack. And every time De Ligt is thinking, should I be going out there because he had to cover Amad Diallo in behind a couple of times, he's taking Maguire as his starting point. Are we up? Are we back? Look at Maguire. Every time Shaw was thinking, am I going to jump out or am I going to sit? He's got Maguire next to him, confirming his decision. So if you go out, I'll cover him behind you. Just a brilliant, brilliant positional game from Harry Maguire. And also, you look at the stats, the aerial duels won, the headers he won. I think it was 8 clearances in the game. Just all round. Every time the ball went to the front post with a low cross or a high cross, it hit that wall there, and that, as he says himself, that rather large head that keeps coming. But then the main point from the goal, very, very simple, really. Bruno Fernandes plays a quality ball back in, right? You wouldn't think many players on the side volley, can hit that into exactly the right place. He's looking for Harry Maguire there.
Right, hang on a minute. Whoa. Do you think he's looking for Harry Maguire, or is he just putting it back in the mixer?
Yeah, but as a player in that sense, yes, he's putting it back in, but he knows, because he took the corner, he knows where Harry Maguire is. The back post man. He's not hit it to the front post, he's hit it to Harry Maguire at the back. Whether that's Maguire or De Ligt at the back, he's gone for the back, right? Look, let's give him some credit. You're smirking at me. Let's give him some credit.
I'm all...
It's a brilliant technique and a brilliant, brilliant cross back in. The other thing is that Liverpool were thinking at this point, because they've got 27 attackers on the field by this stage, as Arne Slot's made so many substitutions, that we're going for goal. And actually, Van Dijk goes, go, like that, as soon as Liverpool half clear their lines. And all the Liverpool players, all of them, are going in that direction. And Harry Maguire is thinking, no, Bruno's going to put this back in. So he's in this position where I'm going to win this every day of the week. And of course, there we go. Great Selly and great finish.
Absolutely. I was thinking after the game, there wasn't too long ago, was it, where he nearly left Manchester United for West Ham. Lots of fans even at the time, questioning whether he had a future there. And to get a moment like that, it's great for him.
And out of contract next year. So, look, I just think it's a no-brainer. You don't. He doesn't have to play every game. In games where you're going to have loads and loads of possession and you need another ball player, then you play Lenny Yoro or Martinez. In a game where you want to play a mid-block and you know someone's going to head it, Harry Maguire.
Absolutely. Right, point number 5, Dino. Mo Salah.
Yeah.
We spoke about Mo Salah in the build-up to the game after you highlighted the awkward positions within which he's getting the ball these days and how he's suffering a little bit from Trent Alexander-Arnold's departure. I was watching that like a hawk. And the amount of times, as you said, he gets the ball and he's got no choice but to sort of turn back, and his skills just are not being utilised. I know there was lots of talk after the game in the coverage about whether he should be dropped and whether he should be starting or playing or otherwise, but it clearly is still a tactical issue. But there's a couple of other things that worried you about his performance in this game.
Yeah, I think there's a shared responsibility here. We see the image there of Slot and Salah. I think there's 50% on both. I think he's a world-class, experienced player who was the best player in the Premier League last year. He's off form. OK, so he's got to refine his form. But Liverpool have got to help him a little bit as well. So there's two things to that. We mentioned in the previous section about Conor Bradley and going out there, and that means that then Salah can come inside and receive the ball on the run rather than being parked on that wing. And what Man United worked out very quickly was because Mason Mount was doing that great job as that half space on Conor Bradley, that meant that Dalot could just be like, I'm on Salah, OK? That meant because, again, Isak was only making one run, which was up the right-hand channel, then that means that Shaw and Maguire know what Isak's going to do. So Maguire will come across when the ball goes that way and pick up Isak, which means Shaw can double up with Dalot on Salah. So not only is his space being taken away, he's got two players on him instead of one. So Liverpool have got to work out a way to get him the ball earlier. And the other thing on him, right, where I think he's got a problem, and in his mind he's got a problem at the moment, is he just won't come off the wing enough. Like it's that can't just be a tactical. When you say come off the wing, yeah, to come into the game and try and find the ball, come and get it.
But isn't, to be fair, Dino, on Team Talk last week, you were describing how when he's at his best, he's hugging the touchline and taking the ball on the run on his way in.
Because they've given him the ball early and he runs onto the ball. But if the ball's not coming over there and you're playing against the team who have doubled up, like you'll see number 10s, they just go wandering around all over the place. And I know he's not a number 10. That's not the point I'm making. The point is that the best moment of Liverpool in the first half came when Salah realised that the midfield had been emptied. OK, so I think that was about 20-odd minutes in. And that had been happening for 20 minutes. And then Liverpool win the ball back in transition. And Man United aren't actually in a terrible position. But Salah manipulates it. And he comes off the wing into that hole in midfield that had been created. And then he plays Gakpo in for Gakpo to hit the post. And that's what I'm talking about, is at his level, he should be able to read that game a little bit more and then make Shaw and Dalot have decision to make. If Salah comes off the wing and runs into that big hole in midfield, is Dalot going to go with him? Or is he going to try and trust Luke Shaw to go with him? Or are they going to pass him on again, which creates indecision amongst everybody else? And that was his best moment in the game. His worst moment in the game, other than that horrible miss, where he just shanks the volley wide, which I don't know if you noticed, but Curtis Jones was celebrating when the ball was in the air. Honestly, you'll always see that. He was wheeling away, celebrating before Salah even touched the ball, because he thought Salah was going to score.
Do you feel like that's a bit of the sort of latest in vogue thing to do for footballers now? We
saw it with the Casado and Fernandes.
Well, exactly. When it works, it looks great, and it's like, oh, look, he knew it was going to go in. But
yeah, that, apart from that moment, there was one where, Alexander Isak obviously had the chance in the first half, but in the second half, there's a break in play, and it was one of the only times United got really caught running back towards their own goal. Isak picks up the ball and he's 1v1 against the left centre-back, and Salah is the man inside him in that sense. The run from Salah is woeful. Absolutely woeful. He's got to do two things. Either he crosses over in front of Isak so that the defender has to go out so Isak can go inside, or he makes an unselfish run and runs virtually in the opposite direction to take the centre-back away from the left centre-back to open up that space. And basically, he just runs in Isak's way. And then all of a sudden, they end up with 3v2. Isak has a sort of speculative shot that goes wide. And it just summed up those two, that they are not on the same wavelength. And if Liverpool are going to improve, those two have either got to learn to play together, or Arne Slot's got a big decision to make.